I hope that's been informative, and I hope that today's presentation gives you a bit of a flavour and a snapshot of what's on offer in Liverpool City Region and how we are set up here. So as I was introduced, I'm Janice Mears. I head up the business growth team within Growth Platform, and I have responsibility for the coordination and the delivery of business support through our local growth hub model. Next slide, please. So who is Growth Platform? So Growth Platform is quite a new organisation. We were set up in September last year. It is a joint venture between the Liverpool City Region Local Enterprise Partnership and our combined authority, and we work in partnership with local businesses and membership organisations, local authorities, chambers, colleges, third sector partners across the region. So we are a partnership organisation, and we coordinate and manage the support to support the business growth and the investment priorities of our city region needs. So yes, so fairly new organisation, although prior to that we were just solely the local enterprise partnership. But this new joint venture really is created as the Liverpool City Region Growth Company, and within that we manage our local growth hub services. Next slide, please. So we have 5 key priorities in Growth Platform: business growth, sector development, inward investment, talent development, and place promotion. Today I'm going to focus on business growth to give you a flavour of the business support offers, explain to you how the Growth Hub service is set up in this region to be slightly different to other areas, but so that you can see the overall, we're quite a wide-reaching kind of organisation, so we have all these different elements that feed in really, all with the main objective of growing our local economy. Next slide, please. So we were set up, as I say, in last year. We had very clear kind of ambitions that we've set out. So I thought, it'd be good to kind of give you that overview. And those ambitions really were around expanding the Growth Hub service that we operate across the region with our delivery partners, which I'll go on to explain in a moment who they are. And to work with the kind of business community in coordinating and managing the increasing number and range of business support services that are out there, and particularly now increased focus on business resilience and survival. Another area of priority for most growth hubs, and certainly for us, was around high growth and financial support. So really coordinating more high growth intensive services to those businesses that are growing quite fast and need the support through local funds that we have in our region, working with our combined authority with the funds that they are pushing out into the market. So these were kind of key priority areas for us. And mentoring and kind of peer networks. We wanted to establish a network of trained business mentors and peer groups to start up and scale businesses with partners, working closely with the universities and colleges and those mentoring and peer programs that are currently live and are coming on stream in the future. Next slide, please. So to achieve all this, we needed to support and develop our Growth Hub service. So we, certainly all regions will recognise how important it is to get the ecosystem right in a region to support small business. And therefore, a few years ago, we kind of set about trying to map that landscape and map that ecosystem. And to give you an idea of the scale of that, we stopped counting when we got to 375 different services across 75 business support organisations. And that was, include the publicly funded ones as well as kind of commercial services that were out there. So a really cluttered landscape, multiple delivery partners, multiple organisations delivering all sorts of support to businesses. And clearly, we were finding it difficult difficult to navigate that. So you can imagine what businesses, particularly small businesses, how difficult they were finding that landscape to try and navigate their way through. So growth hubs around the country, you'll have heard from the northwest ones today. Our ultimate aim really is to simplify that landscape. So we've created models, growth hub models in each of our regions, really responding to kind of local need and our local ecosystem. So when we'd kind of mapped all these organizations, we really started to focus in on the key organizations who were already delivering business support, have been around for a long time, and were providing a very good service to our businesses. They were these organizations that are in front of you now. So we created a local growth hub service with 7 delivery partners. And they are Liverpool City Council and the Chamber, Sefton Council, St Helens Chamber, Knowsley Chamber, Hulton Chamber, Wirral Chamber, and the Women's Org. So these are our key delivery organisations. They're contracted to be the point of contact for businesses. So no matter where a business is across our region, they have a point of contact that they can go to in order to help them navigate through the landscape and through the business support landscape when they're trying to find funding or need help with skills, recruitment, whatever those business needs are, access and, services such as those that you provide. These brokers and these teams are there to kind of help and support those businesses to navigate through all of that. To give you an idea, since in the last 4 years, they have worked with over 10,000 businesses. So, they've got vast reach out into the communities and into their businesses. They are supporting, as I say, across a wide, broad range of services, but they're there to be that point of contact. So this has worked very well for us in this region. All of the details can be found on the delivery partners and the Growth Hub service through growthplatform.org. You can access those services and those partners. So everything is navigated through there. Next slide, please. So that's who we are. That's what we were set up, the kind of ambitions, what we're set up to achieve. I've kind of give you a flavour of who our delivery partners are. And just to kind of explain where we are now. So the reality is, in the past 6 months, COVID hit. So all growth hubs have had to pivot and respond to the business need in the current economic crisis. So, we've all kind of, as I say, pivoted into the business kind of survival support and have been doing that since March of this year. So we've been directing businesses to the range of support, government support that has been out there and local support. Next slide, please. So what have we done in those 6 months? So we have been surveying businesses, as many regions have been doing, to really get to kind of grips with understanding the business needs and the challenges that businesses are facing at this moment. It has been quite a stressful time. It's actually been very upsetting for Growth Hub brokers and advisors who are talking to these businesses who are in absolute distress and have been in distress through those early months. Some continuing to be in that distress, but we have been surveying, we've surveyed over 1,000 businesses in that time to really get to kind of understand, regular surveying to understand where the challenges, where the real issues are lying. And these have been a broad range of issues, but predominantly cash flow issues that businesses, particularly in our visitor economy sector, where we had complete lockdown in those early months. We created kind of a go-to advice service through growthplatform.org. So all our COVID-19 advice and support is directed through that site. And you can link out into the local Growth Hub teams that described earlier from that site. But all of the kind of government information, the government updates, the support programs that we have are all collated in that central point. And that has been used by all of those delivery organisations to get information out to businesses. We also created a helpline. So a kind of a dedicated helpline for businesses to call us on. You know, at its peak in the very start of March, when kind of the lockdown happened, we were taking, you know, in excess of 200 calls a day, if not more. Add that to what the local hubs were taking direct into their chambers and local authorities. You know, we were taking thousands of calls through that. So lots of companies trying to understand the government information that was coming out, trying to understand what support and help is there for them. We have kept that helpline open. And whilst there has been periods where that has lulled, we're starting to see a kind of an increase in calls coming through there now. As we move towards end of furloughing, there are significant challenges that businesses will be facing in the coming months. So we will continue to provide that service to businesses to get them to the right information and the right support that they need. Next slide, please. So alongside of that initial kind of response, we went about working with our partners, our Growth Hub partners and our private sector commercial partners to kind of develop a range and promote the range of support that is out there for businesses, particularly focused around the survival and economic crisis at this moment in time. So we have a fully funded bespoke program of support that has been delivered through BDO LLP that had been running through those early months. So that was real intense kind of support leadership, I guess, for business owners and leaders to get that kind of real diagnostic and support through a commercial organisation, but fully funded by the region. Our Financial and Professional Services Board, we had a range of professional advisors on that board, lawyers, accountants, HR specialists who got together and created a pro bono service. So they created a voluntary service, a group of professionals who were there on the phone to help businesses and give them some practical support and guidance for the needs that they had. That was an excellent response from the commercial sector, who wanted to help, wanted to find any ways in which they could help business. So that service is still running, and it's still there for businesses to get that kind of first step support guidance to what they should be doing under the current circumstances and where they should be looking for support. We've had training support, which has been ongoing, where businesses have had to diversify, had to change, had to reskill particular roles within their business. We've had up to 70% of funding, which is there for businesses. So some businesses have been using that. So we had access to that, which is great. We work very closely with the Be the Business mentoring program, which had been running previous to that, a traditional kind of mentoring program for business leaders, but that was developed into a rapid response 12-week program for businesses, really focusing in on the challenges they were facing. So that has been a real value to the businesses that we had. With our combined authority, we worked with developing a future innovation fund. So that is a £3 million fund, which is there to help companies, 100% kind of funded of projects that companies were presenting to us in ways in which they were innovating, diversifying or digitizing their businesses in order to kind of respond to kind of the change in their business kind of landscapes. So we have just been through the first round of that program. It was hugely oversubscribed. We had hundreds of applications, and to give you an idea, £1 million minimum grants of 75,000, maximum 100, and we allocated about 14 businesses. So only 5% of the businesses that applied got through to, so huge demand. So, and what was interesting about that fund, and a new round, by the way, has just opened this week, so we've got applications coming in. But what was quite interesting about that fund, and is interesting, is that whilst lots of companies within particular sectors are in a very difficult phase, and it's facing significant challenges. There are other businesses that are diversifying and responding to the crisis. We have healthcare companies, manufacturers who are, pivoting from, manufacturing widgets to manufacturing PPE. We've had all sorts of organizations. So in order to do that, they needed the funds in order to innovate and change and adapt. And that's what this fund has been around. So it's been hugely welcome. The only thing about it that has been challenging is the fact that we don't have enough money. So we have 3 million, second round of $1 million open this week, and a further round will come before Christmas. But we're hoping government will fund future rounds into next year. So that will be kind of a watching brief on that. And the other thing that has come down quite recently is recovery grants. So there has been funding, just over £1.2 million worth of funding that has been provided to the city region for Growth Platform to deliver out into businesses. So that is really to support consultancy, up to £3,000 grants for consultancy, advice and guidance that businesses may need to diversify, digitise, adapt to kind of the challenges of COVID, but also to use for equipment that they may need to buy. For example, we've had a range of visitor economy businesses, leisure hospitality businesses who are maybe having to develop digital systems, e-commerce tools within to really adapt and respond to kind of the challenges they're facing around non-touch and no cash and all sorts of kind of. So there's lots of applications coming in that we've about 500 grants to deliver in a very short space of time. So the first round opened about 2 weeks ago, and it was capped at 150 applications, and we were full in within 28 minutes. So huge demand for that. These are just the kind of programs that we have just kind of highlight that we have kind of developed really in response, and key programs that we have been working with previously, like Be the Business, that we wanted to kind of pivot and respond to those particular needs. But what sits behind that is a whole raft of the government kind of initiatives and programs that were coming down, the local authority grants, which the bounce back loans, C-bills, all of that other support sits behind all of this. So still being directed. These are kind of a flavour of the city region kind of priority projects. Next slide, please. And really to kind of finish on kind of key programs that came out of this kind of crisis are our Gather programs. So Gather Gather is an online community for the digital and creative industries that has been developed and funded through our combined authority. That program was due to launch before COVID hit, and they had to kind of adapt very fast to respond to the challenges that were being faced by businesses. So these programs are online training programs for creative and tech leaders to work a bit like leadership development kind of programs and peer-to-peer programs that have been developed to respond, but very much focused on the challenges of the economic crisis. So given some hands-on kind of support to companies in a peer setting. The Gather programs have been very much focused on the creative and digital sector, but to respond to the wider need of the broader sectors, the Sustain program have been developed really to open wide in that to allow manufacturers, retailers, the broad range of kind of sector organizations that are out there to get access to these online support programs. So they've been hugely successful. And so far, the Gather program has put 110 businesses through their 6-week development programs, really to work very closely with those leadership teams, leaders of businesses, to get them the support and guidance they need. So that's been hugely supportive and hugely, we've had a huge response on that, and we will continue to run those programs through into early next year. So that gives you the kind of flavour of the kind of main kind of programmes that we have put out there and are working with businesses on. There are, as I say, there are a whole raft of other European ERDF, European Regional Development Programmes that we have out there. There's a whole range of other support from our working in partnership with our commercial sector and our local growth hub partners. What I'd say is for anyone who wants that, you know, we'd be happy to put you in touch if you're not already in touch with your local growth hub teams to ensure that you're getting the information that you need when you're businesses in your own current roles. And that's it. Any questions?
Thanks very much for that. It was really well delivered and really informative, and great to hear of all the support. I think I mentioned it in the chat, the fact that businesses found it hard to navigate through, was it 375 different business support organisations and routes. It's no wonder. So it's great to hear of the central point for delivery organisations to support business. One thing that really struck me is the use of the word survival as well, which I suppose that is the main key aim for businesses at the moment, and that shift for you and your colleagues from support to helping survival is quite stark.
I think that's the kind of reality and the point when we, growth hubs kind of predominantly are very much focused on growth, on kind of scaling businesses, really working with the current climate we're in at the moment is really challenging for businesses. Their focus is not necessarily on growth, it's been on survival. So we've had to adapt and kind of adapt our services, adapt our programs really to respond to that, because those businesses went into kind of lockdown and survival mode, and we needed to wrap the support around them in order to ensure that they could sustain through this crisis, and when they come out the other side, then the support is there to help them to grow and continue. So it has been a real challenging 6 months, not just for businesses, but for the growth hubs and the support services that are out there to have to adapt and change to those needs. So yeah, I think
the personal side of it as well, of how difficult it is for your colleagues, because obviously growth hub colleagues that I've met in different growth hubs, they're quite passionate. They are very passionate about supporting business, want them to grow. So to see that personal side of how hard it was for colleagues to help support business through survival, that was quite telling. I've got a couple of points in the chat. A question from Jackie. Is it further up? Sorry, I might have missed it. So Jackie's asked, we know that businesses have had to navigate through a great deal of regulatory advice and would benefit from regulatory support. And did this feature in the inquiries that you received? And what is your ask from regulators about how we can work better together?
So I think, within our growth hub network, so within the delivery partners that we have, so the chambers of commerce and the local authority teams, in all of our areas, the local authority and the chamber kind of team, regardless of where that growth hub contract sits, work very closely together in order to ensure that the services that they both provide are promoted and supported for business need. So we would have had most certainly from regulatory advice for those businesses that were facing, crisis and having to, from a regulatory change, actually, when those were facing, they will have had to be kind of guided in. So we have ensured that all of our teams, all of our growth hub teams are engaged with the regulatory support teams, particularly that are in their local authorities, but also, the wider regulatory services, fire and so on and so forth. So there will have been some need. The majority of the bulk of our inquiries in need had been, around cash flow. That was the absolute number one, pretty much, 9 out of 10 inquiries that we would get were about cash flow, were about, businesses at that point where, lockdown, shut down, and literally how are we going to how are we going to pay our customers? How, you know, it was, so the bulk of what we were dealing with and have been dealing with have been cash flow issues, but certainly there will have been regulatory inquiries in there, and the teams are well briefed on who they are. Earlier, kind of in previous kind of engagement with BBFA, with Better Business for All, we had a coordinated team across the city that worked to kind of ensure that all Growth Hub teams knew who the contacts were, and the key regulatory teams knew who the Growth Hub contacts were. So, and whilst we accept people change and people move around, we, you know, I'm pretty sure we could do more to really get that engagement and get that collaboration and partnership working better than maybe that it is. But certainly they know who their key points of contact are.
And that would be really good, really, to sort of re-energise a bit of Better Business for All, wouldn't it? And it's a quick win. If we could just at least get the contacts and a bit of signposting sorted, you know, that makes something we could take forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think that definitely is, you know, because as I say, you know, times change, people change, teams change. There has been a lot of kind of change, particularly within kind of local authority teams, huge amount of kind of change over the last couple of years. And, you know, we know that some of those regulatory teams have been downsized significantly, and the pressures that they're under is huge. So the resource, you know, there's not necessarily a huge amount of resource there, but that's where the Growth Hub teams could really offer that support to say we're here to kind of support as best we can. So that's what we have been trying to do. And I think, you know, going forward, we could look to definitely re-energise that and do more with that.
And I think, you know, what struck me as well, I think, for all the presentations this week is the parallels, you know, the sort of the demands on the Growth Hub, but equally for regulators as well. So you've got so many things in common, and equally for regulators expanding their knowledge, because absolutely I can understand why cash flow was your absolutely top of the shop inquiry, but for regulators to know that there's somewhere the businesses can go, because they'll be seeing that on the front line, won't they? So it's quite simple stuff, really, you know, to expand that knowledge. So really good to hear it, and fantastic presentation, Janice, really good.
Thank you.
We've just got a couple of questions from Teresa. Did you want to come in, Teresa, and ask them?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
There's quite a lot, and you gave loads of examples, and I was thinking, oh, lots of things are spinning around in my head. So I was just thinking, if you think of one particular way and you think that would really benefit from regulatory support in some of those schemes?
So sorry. So think of a way of how we can work better, or
work with the regulators, particularly on some of those schemes, because you've got there's lots of schemes you spoke about. So I just think the ones that you thought, well, actually, that one really works well, that could value it, or based on the survey.
And I think definitely we could look to see how we could integrate and engage with the regulatory teams into some of those services, particularly, you know, where we have kind of services around like the pro bono service, where people are inquiring about specific, maybe quite bespoke, potentially regulatory kind of guidance, of which the Growth Hub teams will obviously, you know, are quite, you know, they're there engaging and supporting across a broad range of inquiries, but actually when you need specialist support, then you need to have a point to go with. So I think certainly with those pro bono services, it's like, it would be great to have maybe, you know, a few key points of contact that if businesses needed them and we're asking now about a specific, you know, whether it's health and safety or whatever, you know, whatever it may be, we could certainly kind of build that in so it's there. But I think, you know, for me, I think it's probably even simpler than that. It's just really ensuring that the key points of contacts in those teams know who they are, you know, and that sounds like a really simple thing. And it's always, you know, it's not rocket science, but people move and people change. People get very busy in their teams. And it's just reminding people that we're, you know, that these are the points of contact that are here. But certainly, you know, the broad range of programs we have, I think, for the regulators to maybe get more information and better understand what they're all about. that's probably a good. So we need to kind of look, I think it would be good to kind of look in the future about ways in which we can kind of present the services that are there from and the guidance around regulation, so that we're signposting to the right areas, but at the same time, you know, offering the support back to those regulatory teams, because what I'm very conscious of, and in my past engagement with regulatory teams, you know, they're massively under-resourced and can't probably deal with volumes of inquiries, but that's where the Growth Hub is there to kind of to ease that pressure, to try and support as best they can and bring the regulatory teams in where it's critical or where it's, you know, absolutely necessary, rather than fielding masses of inquiries their way, which they're never going to be able to manage. So so yeah, it's just about working out that relationship and how best that works.
Yeah, we had that talk from Andrew yesterday from Lancashire and Boost, and he was talking about that some of the most important thing is the relationships.
Yeah, it is.
And work together, you got the relationship, and then you can dip in. And the gentleman from Ian Smallbridge from East Sussex Business East Sussex said the same thing. So Jackie's got her hand up, so I'll let her come in.
And you're on mute, Jackie.
Usual. Either not put my hand down or not undone my mute button. It's usually one or the other. Yeah, I was just going to say, you just described Better Business for All really perfectly, I think, there. I think, you know, we should just capture that in the recording, because that literally is Better Business for All. Like you said, it's not rocket science. I think we say that all the time, you know, so
yeah, and I think, you know, it definitely isn't rocket science, but, you know, but I know, and, you know, and, you know, you'll know that it's trying to keep these things, trying to keep the focus and the momentum on them. And I think, you know, we all get lost in the demands of our day job, the responses that we have to do. You know, growth hubs are under immense pressure at the moment with the amount of government support and guidance that's coming down, and we're having to respond and develop programs in response to that. So, you know, sometimes these kind of initiatives get a little bit lost. And I think, you know, this is a great opportunity this week, I think, to reinvigorate all of that. So, you know, you've been out and engaged with all the kind of hubs across the Northwest. And I think what this will do is kind of start to reinvigorate that relationship between growth hubs and regulators, and start to re-establish some of those relationships. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are still very strong relationships, particularly within our local authority kind of business support teams and their regulatory departments, for example, very strong relationships. So it's not to say they're not all there, but it's not just about local authorities. There's a much wider kind of remit there. So it's about working out how we can collaborate and work together in the wider kind of spectrum as well. So yeah,
and I think as well, it's at this point in time with the challenges, and we've got EU transition on the horizon as well, which again, that parallels there for regulators around some of the work they need to do there. I think maybe it's about expectations, so maybe, you know, as you say, just getting contacts initially, get an understanding of what, you know, what the respective organisations do. That's just a good start off for 10, you know, and that is BBFA. Everything that comes after that is bonus, isn't it? You know, but yeah, excellent, Janice, really good.
So Janice, you may not like this, but we may have found a new ambassador for BBFA in you.
Talked myself into a job now, haven't I?
I think Jackie hit the nail on the head, because you did summarise BBFA, and it's the simple things that the foundation of it that really work. And likewise for regulators, I know the regulatory background, I used to enjoy knowing about the local growth hub and being able to say to the business, oh, you know you can access this, you know, access to funding or digital support, and it's great to be able to not go just as a regulator and say, look, we are supporting and we're working with our growth hubs, and rather than say, oh, that's not my area, I don't know anything about that. Businesses kind of, and then they know that everybody works together and that we are genuinely looking to support business. So it's a two-way thing, and I think those contacts are key. And it's the simple things that are the most effective. So having that point of contact both ways is great, and understanding each other's roles. So you've really done that brilliantly for us today. So we will be back. So so I don't think there's any. Jeff has asked to make contact with you, which is great about some of the points that you've raised. But just to reiterate what Jackie said, thanks very much, Janice. It was really good and really informative. And I know we've gone over, but I think it was worth it to listen to.
Okay, well, you're welcome. Anyone needs any information, Jeff, I will pick up with Jeff separately. So I've seen his note what he's looking. So yeah, we can help him there. But anyone else, just get in touch.
Okay, and same time next week. Thanks.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, ladies. Thank you.
Happy weekend, everybody.
Jackie's going to turn off the recording.